Imagine commanding the world's largest economy, steering superpowers through geopolitical storms, and wielding influence that ripples across every continent. In 2025, these aren't just leaders, they're the titans reshaping our global order with unyielding vision and iron resolve. Number 10. Prabowo Subianto, President of Indonesia. Prabowo Subianto stormed into the Indonesian presidency in 2024, inheriting a nation of 280 million, the fourth most populous on Earth, and transforming it into Southeast Asia's economic powerhouse. A former general with a storied military background, Prabowo has aggressively pursued downstreaming policies, forcing foreign miners to process raw materials like nickel domestically, catapulting Indonesia's export revenues to over $300 billion annually, and securing its dominance in the global electric vehicle battery supply chain. His diplomatic finesse shines in balancing ties with the US, China, and ASEAN neighbors, while his domestic reforms have slashed poverty rates by 5% in his first year through targeted infrastructure megaprojects, including the $33 billion Nusantara capital city relocation. Critics decry his authoritarian leanings, but supporters hail his pragmatic nationalism, evidenced by a 68% approval rating. In a region rife with territorial tensions, Prabowo's naval expansions and energy pacts position Indonesia as the indispensable mediator, ensuring his voice echoes in every Indo-Pacific summit. With GDP growth hitting 5.2% in 2025, he's not just leading a country, he's forging an archipelago empire that commands the seas and skies of tomorrow. Number 9. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of Turkey. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey's iron-fisted leader since 2014, continues to defy odds in 2025, blending Ottoman revivalism with modern realpolitik to make Ankara a pivotal player straddling Europe and Asia. At 71, he's overseen a military modernization that includes indigenous drones like the Bayraktar TB2, which have tipped balances in conflicts from Ukraine to Libya, boosting Turkey's defense exports to $5 billion yearly. Economically, despite inflation woes, his pivot to BRICS partnerships has stabilized the lira through Russian gas deals and Chinese investments, fueling a 4.1% GDP rebound. Erdogan's foreign policy masterstrokes, brokering Black Sea grain corridors and mediating Saudi-Iran talks, have elevated Turkey's NATO clout while frustrating Western allies with his Syria incursions and Hamas sympathies. Domestically, mega-projects like Istanbul's $20 billion canal promise to eclipse the Bosphorus, symbolizing his vision of a neo-Ottoman Turkey. With 55% approval amid earthquake recovery triumphs, Erdogan's blend of populism and power projection ensures he remains the unpredictable fulcrum of Middle Eastern stability, where one tweet can ignite alliances or unravel them. Number 8. Javier Milei, President of Argentina. Javier Milei, the anarcho-capitalist chainsaw-wielding economist who upended Argentina's Peronist dynasty in 2023, enters 2025 as a radical reformer whose libertarian shock therapy is either saving or shattering Latin America's third-largest economy. Nicknamed El Loco, this former TV pundit has slashed public spending by 30%, deregulated 366 laws in his first mega decree, and dollarized whispers that sent inflation tumbling from 211% to under 40%, a feat that earned him IMF praise and Bitcoin bro status. His chainsaw symbolism cuts deep. Austerity measures axed 70,000 state jobs, but they've unlocked $44 billion in foreign investments, from lithium mines fueling Tesla's ambitions to agribusiness booms exporting $80 billion in soy and beef. Globally, Malay's alignment with Trump and Malay-Musk bromance positions Argentina as a counterweight to socialist neighbors, while his UN rants against collectivist climate agendas rally free market allies. At 55% approval despite street protests, Malay's unorthodox style, from tango dancing inaugurations to abolishing the central bank, embodies chaotic innovation, proving that in a debt-ridden world, one man's madness can forge fiscal resurrection and redefine hemispheric power.
Number 7. Claudia Sheinbaum, President of Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico's first female and Jewish president since October 2024, is redefining North American power dynamics in 2025 with a scientist's precision and a stateswoman's steel. A climate expert with a PhD from Berkeley, she's channeled her UN IPCC creds into green revolutions, mandating 35% renewable energy by 2030 and attracting $15 billion in U.S. nearshoring deals that have created 500,000 jobs amid Trump's tariff threats. Her hugs not bullets pivot from predecessor López Obrador's militarized security has curbed cartel violence by 20% through intelligence sharing pacts with Washington, while judicial reforms purging corrupt judges have restored faith in institutions, boosting her 62% approval. Economically, she's turbocharged the USMCA with auto sector investments hitting $10 billion, positioning Mexico as the bridge between American markets and Latin supply chains. On the world stage, her G20 advocacy for migrant worker rights and Amazon conservation has won plaudits from Europe, even as she navigates femicide crises with bold gender parity laws. At 63, Sheinbaum's data-driven diplomacy, evident in AI ethics summits, marks her not as a novice, but as the cerebral force steering 130 million souls towards sustainable sovereignty in a volatile neighborhood. Number 6. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President of Brazil. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the 80-year-old workers' icon back in power since 2023, commands Brazil's vast Amazonian heartland and G20 heft in 2025, wielding soft power like a samba rhythm that sways global agendas. From São Bernardo's factories to Brasília's palaces, Lula's third act has reclaimed Brazil's environmental crown, slashing deforestation by 50% through his Green Brazil Fund that mobilized $20 billion in international aid, earning him UN climate hero status. Economically, his Bolsa Familia expansion lifted 10 million from poverty, fueling a 3.8% GDP surge via soy exports and Petrobras's offshore oil bonanza, while trade pacts with the EU and Mercosur have diversified beyond China dependence. Diplomatically, Lula's BRICS expansions and Ukraine mediation, hosting peace talks in Rio, position Brazil as the global South's voice, countering U.S. dominance with his multipolar charm offensive. Despite health scares and Bolsonaro loyalist unrest, his 58% approval stems from infrastructure wins like the $100 billion Pacifico rail linking Atlantic to Asian markets. Lula's enduring magic lies in his everyman's empathy fused with strategic savvy, proving that in a polarized world, the man who once charmed unions can still unite hemispheres under a rainbow flag of equity and influence. Number 5. Lee Jae-myung, President of South Korea. Lee Jae-myung, the progressive firebrand who clinched South Korea's presidency in a razor-thin 2025 vote, is electrifying the Korean peninsula with tech-savvy reforms that amplify Seoul's role as Asia's innovation vanguard. A self-made lawyer scarred by factory toil, Lee's basic income blueprint has rolled out universal dividends, slashing inequality by 15% and igniting consumer spending that propelled Samsung's AI chip dominance, with exports topping $700 billion.
Militarily, amid North Korean saber-rattling, he's deepened U.S. alliances through joint hypersonic drills while extending olive branches via economic sanctions relief tied to denuclearization talks, stabilizing the DMZ for the first time in years. Globally, Lee's push for a digital Silk Road with ASEAN partners has secured $50 billion in 5G infrastructure deals, positioning Korea as the antidote to China's Belt and Road. Domestically, his gender equality mandates and chaebol antitrust crackdowns have boosted his 60% approval, even as conservatives decry his labor overhauls. At 62, Lee's blend of populist grit and forward-thinking policy, from quantum computing hubs to K-pop diplomacy, transforms South Korea from economic miracle to geopolitical dynamo, where one leader's vision codes the future of freedom in a divided East.
Number 4. Emmanuel Macron, President of France. Emmanuel Macron, the 48-year-old wonderkin now in his second term, steers France through 2025's tempests with En Marche élan, making Paris the EU's indispensable anchor amid Brexit aftershocks and Russian shadows. A former Rothschild banker, Macron's strategic autonomy doctrine has poured 100 billion euros into defense, birthing Europe's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier and exporting Rafale jets to India and UAE, netting $20 billion in arms deals. Economically, his pension reforms and green taxonomy have lured Tesla's gigafactory expansions, driving 2.5% growth, while the France 2030 plan invests 54 billion euros in hydrogen and biotech, positioning France as the bloc's clean tech leader. On the world stage, Macron's Africa reset, ceding influence in Mali but deepening Sahel counterterrorism, coupled with Indo-Pacific patrols, has fortified EU-NATO synergy against hybrid threats. Domestically, navigating yellow vest echoes with universal health hikes, his 52% approval reflects masterful multilateralism, from COP30 hosting to Ukraine arms pledges. Macron's Jupiterian style, eloquent addresses that sway Davos to Dakar, embodies enlightened realpolitik, ensuring France remains the Latin hinge of a fracturing West, where intellect and intervention forge enduring empires.
Number 3. Vladimir Putin, President of Russia. Vladimir Putin, the judo master who's gripped Russia's Kremlin for over 2 decades, dominates 2025's chessboard with a blend of raw resource leverage and revanchist resolve that keeps the world on edge. At 73, his Ukraine gambit has reshaped Eurasian security, pivoting Moscow toward a greater Eurasia axis, with $200 billion in Sino-Indian trade offsets, while Arctic LNG projects secure Europe's energy stranglehold despite sanctions. Militarily, Wagner evolutions into Africa Corps have embedded Russian boots in 10 nations, extracting gold and uranium in exchange for regime stability, amplifying soft power via disinformation mastery. Economically, despite Western isolation, ruble stability and BRICS de-dollarization, led by his petro-yuan push, have sustained 3.6% growth, with hypersonic missiles and S-500 exports burnishing his arms bazaar to $15 billion. Putin's 85% approval amid Wagner purges stems from patriotic narratives and pension boosts, while cultural exports like RT global reach 500 million viewers. In a multipolar fray, Putin's bearish pragmatism, from grain corridor revivals to Taliban talks, proves he's not just surviving encirclement, he's redrawing fault lines, ensuring Russia's eternal return as the indispensable disruptor of the post-Cold War dream.
Number 2. Xi Jinping, President of China. Xi Jinping, the paramount leader whose Chinese dream has eclipsed horizons since 2013, orchestrates 2025's superpower symphony from Zhongnanhai,
commanding the globe's factory floor and 1.4 billion ambitions with unerring centralism. At 72, his Belt and Road Initiative now spans 150 countries with $1 trillion invested, from Pakistan's Gwadar port to Africa's solar grids, and snaring supply chains in a web of debt diplomacy that rivals U.S. aid. Economically, dual circulation strategies have hit 5.2% GDP growth, propelled by EV behemoths like BYD outselling Tesla and semiconductor self-reliance amid chip wars, while common prosperity curbs big tech excesses to redistribute $500 billion in wealth. Militarily, Taiwan's Strait patrols and hypersonic DF-41 deployments project reunification resolve, deterring foes as South China Sea reclamations solidify blue water navy status. Xi's anti-corruption purges have consolidated CCP loyalty with 90% domestic approval, and his global narrative, from Winter Olympics legacies to panda diplomacy, masks Uyghur shadows. In an era of decoupling, Xi's Marxist-Leninist fusion with market might positions China as the gravitational center, where one man's anti-Western arc bends history toward harmony under heaven, redefining power as patient, pervasive persistence.
Number 1. Donald Trump, President of the United States. Donald J. Trump, the 47th and now 48th President of the United States, reclaims the Oval Office in 2025 with MAGA momentum, wielding America's unmatched arsenal and $28 trillion economy like a golden hammer that pounds global agendas into submission. At 79, his second-term blitzkrieg, tariffs on China at 60%, NATO dues ultimatums, and Abraham Accords expansions has realigned alliances, extracting $200 billion in defense pledges while brokering Saudi-Israel normalization that floods markets with petrodollars. Economically, tax cuts redux and deregulation have unleashed 3% growth, with Space Force's lunar mining pacts and AI executive orders cementing U.S. tech hegemony against Beijing's surge. Militarily, his peace through strength doctrine, bolstering Ukraine aid with precision strikes and deterring Iran via Abraham carrier groups, has quelled escalations without new wars, earning bipartisan kudos. Trump's 55% approval, buoyed by border wall completions and opioid crackdowns, thrives on his deal-maker DNA, from TikTok salvages to fentanyl China pacts. The art of the deal author turned statesman, his tweet-storm diplomacy, from Mar-a-Lago summits to Truth Social manifestos, embodies disruptive dominance, proving that in the arena of nations, one outsider's brash genius can reset the world order, making America not just great again, but the indispensable colossus once more.